You have questions about Ecuador, and I have answers. Let's get started. How easy is it to rent a car with a driver to get to places outside of Quito, and how much should I pay? Good question. When it comes to finding a driver, it's actually not that complicated if you go into Facebook groups or maybe forums on Reddit. But if you want a good recommendation from me, and one that's actually gotten tons of praise in a Facebook group, then I definitely recommend Mr. Darwin Paredes. As for pricing, this definitely depends on where you're planning to go. For example, the price from Quito to Baños could be $100. If you're talking about a much farther away place, like from Quito to Cuenca, that could be around $200 because it's about an 8-hour drive. You can also find drivers who have specific rates per hour. For example, an average rate that I saw was about $20 per hour. And the price of this could vary depending on if the person knows English or not. In my opinion, having someone who's bilingual will help you out not only during the trip, since the person can give you information about the things you're seeing on your way to your destination, but also in case you need to stop somewhere, like at a store, and talk to someone who only knows Spanish. In that case, you'll be very grateful you have a bilingual person as your driver. All right, next question. How is the weather currently in Quito? Quito is weird. This isn't an isolated opinion, this is actually a cold hard fact. The weather in Quito is not exactly what you would call stable. For example, I made a community post that was actually pictures taken from a TikTok, and in those pictures it showed how at 1 hour it was super sunny. Then, like about an hour later, it just turned super rainy in Quito. But if you want to know the temperature, the weather today is 59 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 15 degrees Celsius. And according to worldweather.info, there's supposed to be thunderstorm with rain today. So yeah. All right, the next question. So I have psoriasis. I'm not a doctor, so I'm not sure if that's okay. And I know the medication, Otezla, or generic name Apremilast, once again, not a doctor, can be expensive. How can I find out how much it will cost me in Ecuador? Whew, that's a heavy question. I actually did some research myself, checked some sites, and I got this comprehensive list, which I'll leave the link in the description of this video. And the list has a whole bunch of medicines that you can find here in Ecuador and the prices for those medicines. But unfortunately, the medicine that you're looking for, I could not find on that list. But I am going to go out to a pharmacy and try to see if they have it and find out the price. If they do have it and they give me a price, I'll make sure to leave the price somewhere on screen right now. Looks like we got a 3-part question here. So, are you able to tell us the difficulty of playing DVDs bought in the US on a player purchased in Ecuador? Is it easier or harder if it's Blu-ray? And does Ecuador offer a region-free DVD or Blu-ray player? Now, I had to go really hard on the investigation of this one, asking friends, going to stores, and it's a mess. First, let's go with the more official response. I did go to stores, and unfortunately, stores don't sell DVDs or Blu-ray players anymore. I find that very odd, mainly because just before pandemic, people were still buying pirated DVDs from stores. I know because there's one really close to my house. And I remember people always used to go there. It's upgraded throughout the years, but it was the normal thing to do to buy DVDs and watch them on your free time. So I figured stores would still have DVD players or Blu-ray players. But going on to the response of my friends, they did say that ever since the whole smart box, the whole streaming service era, which pretty much got even more, I guess you could say, traction during the pandemic, people really don't buy DVDs anymore. They just pay for a subscription service, they get tons of movies at cheap prices, so people really don't use DVDs or Blu-ray players as they used to. And what another friend said, if you're on the lookout for a DVD or a Blu-ray player anyways, is that you could buy a PS4, or you could splurge and go for the PS5, or a lot of the new current gen systems, which do offer, aside from playing video games, being able to play Blu-ray discs. On to the next question. If you are born in Ecuador, is college free? This is actually a really cool question, but the answer, there's some things you need to know. So first, we have to understand that the system, like another place such as the States, which has college and it also has university, doesn't exactly exist over here. Over here, it's more common that all higher education is considered university. And of course, you can go past that and get your master's and PhD. But there is no specific college. Now, as for the question of if it's free or not, it is free to Ecuadorians, but it's also free to people who aren't Ecuadorian citizens. In other words, it's free for everyone. If we're talking about public universities, of course. Private or paid universities have their own prices, depending on the city and I guess the quality of the university itself. All right, next question. And looks like we have a two-part question. Can you give me any info on a good, decent, and fair driver that could take me and my family from Quito? Also, is the food and other stuff still cheap, or has it gone up with this global inflation? All right, excellent questions. The one about driving, the driver, we already have an answer to that. Like I said before, Mr. Darwin Paredes is probably your best choice. Tons of people recommend him, and I will also leave his number in the description, as well as other numbers he recommends in case he happens to be busy on the day that you need him. And when it comes to the price of food, it's very difficult to say what exactly you consider to be cheap, because it really does depend on where you're coming from. Like for example, people coming from a place where $10 to $15 dishes is the norm are gonna say that things here are very cheap, because you can find dishes from as low as $3.50 to maybe around $5. You can obviously find more premium dishes at higher prices, but it's not necessary if you're just looking to eat good, cheap Ecuadorian food. This next one is a pretty interesting one. Does Ecuador use $2 bills? This question is very interesting because Ecuador does use $2 bills. It's not a frequent thing that you see, and if you pay with one, a lot of people, well, the people who know, will be grateful for it. You see, one of the superstitions here is that a $2 bill is very lucky. I'm guessing mainly because you don't see it very often, so if you get one, you probably won't waste it here. If you're not from here, you probably won't care, but people from here will probably treasure it. Heck, even I have one somewhere in my room. What I will say in relation to bills is to definitely focus your energy on bringing smaller bills, such as $1, $5, and $10 bills, and even $1 coins, 50-cent coins, 25-cent coins, 10-cent coins, 5-cent coins, because here, all of those are used a ton. All right, we have another weather-related question. So, how's the weather in Quito and Cuenca in the middle of April? Thanks. In order to get a good idea of the weather of April, we're gonna pull up worldweather.info again, and we're gonna go back to 2022. And to be specific, we're gonna use the dates of the 15th, 16th, 17th, and 18th of April in order to see what the weather was like during those days in 2022. The stats of Quito from the 15th to the 18th show that the degrees, at least at night, was at its lowest with 46 degrees and at its highest with 50 degrees. During the day, the lowest was 63 degrees and the highest was 64 degrees. And every day had some sort of rain. As for Cuenca, the lowest was 54 degrees and the highest was 55 degrees at night. And during the day, the lowest was at 64 degrees while the highest was 68 degrees. And like Quito, Cuenca also had every day with some kind of rain. I'll also leave the statistics for both Quito and Cuenca in 2021 so that you can make a comparison between 2022 and 2021. And if you'd like to make even more comparison with other years, I'll also leave the link of the website that I used in the description down below. All right, next question. How long does eVisa take for Somalian passport? Honestly, your guess is as good as mine. You'd probably be able to give me the answer better because if you might actually be there. I have no idea, and I actually have never gotten an eVisa, but I have been doing my research as usual, and I found 3 responses, and out of the 3, there's 1 that I really like and 2 not so much. The page in the government of Turkey states that you can apply to an eVisa at any time before you travel. However, you should create an eVisa application at least 48 hours before departure. On the other hand, we have the India Visa Online, which states that you can apply for an Indian eVisa, but it is advisable to file for one at least 4 to 7 days before the desired entry date, as it takes 3 to 4 business days to accomplish the visa process. But then we have my favorite one, the one that's from the Royal Thai Embassy in The Hague, the Netherlands. No idea if I pronounced that right, but if I butchered it, I'm sorry. Here it states that generally for most applications, it is expected to take 5 to 10 working days after a complete application is received, which means all required documents must be submitted correctly. And you should also observe the embassy's holidays. And it also gives even more information stating that you must apply for an eVisa at least 1 month before your intended travel date, but no longer than 2 months, because most visas have 60 to 90 days validity starting from the date of issuance. For anyone who knows me and knows how prepared I like to be, the reason I like the third one is because it gives you tons of preparation time to get your eVisa, and if there's any complications, you can avoid them or tackle them as soon as they show up. So while none of these apply to Ecuador, definitely take them into consideration so that you know more or less how much time it could take to get your eVisa. We got another question, but this one comes with some background information. Tipping. What advice would you give? I always tip for good service, but our tour operator guide is advising us to tip each tour guide, driver, waiter, etc., at least $10 per person, amounting to $20 each time as we are a couple. This is adding up to a large amount quite quickly. Excuse me? Alright, so let's understand tipping culture in Ecuador. There is no tipping culture in Ecuador. If you want to tip, it is super optional. Like, you have to really enjoy the service, or the people had to have been that kind, the place that amazing, that someone would be willing to actually give a tip. Now with that, I am speaking for Ecuadorians. For someone who's visiting from out of the country, it might be a big culture shock or super strange to not give any tip at all. But what I will say, and this is a shared opinion because I actually asked a friend about it the day I saw this question, is that you don't have to tip a lot. $10 per person is excessive, and it almost looks like abuse, because no one should be asking for $10 in tip here in Ecuador. The service has to have been amazingly great for you to even consider that amount, and that would only be for the group. You, your couple, maybe if you were with your family. But per person, $10? Way too much. 2 things that I will say in addition to that are that, 1, if you've got the kind of money to tip that amount, then if you really want to, go ahead. I don't recommend it because it might set unreal expectations for everyone around you, but if you want to, who's stopping you? And 2, I'd like to emphasize the sentence that I read at the end, which is, this is adding up to a large amount quite quickly. If for your trip you plan to spend X amount of money, don't torture yourself trying to spend even more by giving tips. Always focus on what you are able to give in any given situation. Jeopardizing your trip to give an optional, and I do mean very optional, tip is definitely not worth it. So give what you can and don't let it stress you out. And also, that tip about tipping and the tip about weather and the tip about change are tips that I give in my 22 tips video, which you should definitely check out next if you're planning on coming to Ecuador. Support me by becoming a channel member or a member on buymeacoffee.com to get priority response to your questions, access to an exclusive community tab, and tons of other perks. Take care, and as always, ace out.